Nick here at IBM Innovate 2014 in Orlando, Florida, in the Central Hall, in the place where it all happens, here with Gene Kim, author, researcher of the Phoenix Project, and a bunch of other things, of course. You being here today, the keynote was this morning where you spoke on a lot of things, and we kind of want to talk about why IBM Innovate today is really what we want to know.
Yeah, I'm always seeking out hotbeds of DevOps activity. So, here at IBM Innovate, there's been tons of large, complex organizations talking about transformative, disruptive projects like DevOps, and so, that is enough to bring me here. And there's been wonderful stories of, transformations in very conservative organizations, and I just find that exciting beyond words.
It definitely is, and as you can see, there's a lot of stuff happening around us today, a lot of new and innovative ways to make software more agile, more rapid, more easy to develop. And speaking of DevOps, some of the developers that I know watch our content might not have the best image of what DevOps is, and you had an interesting narrative behind that that I felt like you should share.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm a developer by training, but I spent most of my career in operations, and I think there's a huge fear within operations about DevOps because many people think that DevOps will automate everyone's jobs away, when in fact I think it's the exact opposite. Isn't it interesting that in the development community, there's also a huge fear that DevOps is, when you hear people talk about DevOps, run the other way, or better yet, torpedo the initiative, because all DevOps people want to do is put developers on pager rotation, right? And I think the basis behind that is what we found studying high-performing DevOps organizations over the last 15 years is that one of the hallmarks of DevOps organizations is that developers are on page rotation just like operations people. And I think one of the quotes that I just love came from Patrick Lightbody when he was a founder of a company called BrowserMob. He said, "We found that when we woke up developers at 2 a.m., defects got fixed faster than ever." Right? And it wasn't like he didn't like developers. He wasn't waking up random developers at random times. I think what he highlighted so brilliantly was that in order to have shared goals between dev, test, and ops, we have to have shared pain. And only by doing that can we create genuine empathy between dev, test, and ops. And it goes both ways. And so Werner Vogels, the CTO at Amazon, has gone on record and at long lengths to be able to say how great that is for the customer experience when developers are close to the customer. Can I tell you an alternate narrative I would propose? There's a gentleman named Tim Tischler. He's the director of operations automation at Nike. And I'll never forget what he said to me once. He said, as a career-long developer, there's never been a more satisfying time in my career when I got to write the code, push the code to production myself, got to see customers delighted by running it, be the person to fix it when something went wrong, right? All without having to open up a ticket, all without being reliant upon someone else and having to wait 2 or 3 days. And I think that sort of sense of flow and joy is what DevOps can return back to developers. So I think it is an amazing time to be a developer these days, and DevOps helps enable that.
And I guess you have to really put aside the fear of failure when you're pushing code out, 16 times a day instead of once every week or so. Can you speak on really getting rid of that fear of just making it easier to fix the things that are happening, knowing that something is going to go wrong?
So, and here's an operations joke, right? Show me a developer who's not causing an outage, I'll show you one on vacation. Someone made a very interesting observation to me once. His name is Nick Galbraith. He was the head of security at Etsy, one of the DevOps exemplars. And he said, isn't it interesting as we increase the rate of deployment and we create the ability to deploy just by pushing a button, that the person most afraid of pushing the deploy button are the developers. Right? And I think it just shows, so if the developers are afraid to push the deploy button, how do you think we operations people feel about it? And so being able to have, like almost anything in life, whether it's learning to play a musical instrument, special forces training in the military, or training a sports team to win, researchers now say that it's all about repetition, right? That doing painful things more frequently is actually what helps us become great. And so, I think there are a million reasons that legitimize the fear of deploying code in production. But if we believe that we need faster feedback loops and we want to do deployments more quickly to match the rate of the change that customers want, then this is a discipline that we just need to be able to master, or otherwise we risk irrelevance. Certainly 5 to 10 years from now.
And I guess some of the concern also could be listening to customer feedback, which is obviously important, but then being able to discern the needs from the crazy feedback and not pushing that deploy button to just appease that one person. How do you really put yourself in a bubble to be able to make the right decision if you're deploying code multiple times a day?
Yeah, I think I would take that reality that you painted any day over a customer with a burning desire, right, with a great feature idea that would take a couple minutes to implement, but having to wait 6 to 9 months, right, for the next deployment cycle. So, that might not be happening a lot in startups. However, in large, complex organizations, in large enterprises, I think that is more of the reality that we face. So, I think every organization, every developer deserves to be an organization that can push on demand, whether it's to make the developers' lives easier or the ops people's lives easier, or better yet, make a customer happier.
So changing gears just slightly, how does IBM and the Bluemix Cloud really bring all of this together to make agile, rapid development a little easier for everybody?
One of the funnest things I've been able to work on over the last couple of years is benchmarking high performers. And my collaborator in this project has been Jez Humble, who wrote the continuous delivery book. And after benchmarking 14,000 organizations, we now know that there are a couple very effective predictors of performance. There are certain behaviors that every high performer does. We know that they version control all the production artifacts so that you can recreate the production environment from scratch. So it's not just the code, it's the infrastructure as well. We know that you have to have automated testing. We know that we need to have proactive monitoring in production so that ideally we detect the problems first before the customer does. And all of those things require automation. You can't do 75 million test cases a day. Well, I suppose you could with enough people, but that's soul-killing, awful manual work. And so all of these capabilities are capabilities that IBM provides, and any IBM customer should be looking to their IBM as a supplier to take advantage, because we know that these capabilities are prerequisites to high performance.
Definitely. I got to ask you before we let you go, what's Gene Kim working on today? What do you have in your brain, in your works that you're putting out?
My area of passion these days is studying how large, complex organizations adopt DevOps. So it's not so much about the unicorns, so much like Google and Amazon and Etsy. They're fine, right? What I'm interested in is how horses are transforming. So these are, the Fortune 500 organizations, these organizations who have been around for decades or maybe even centuries, and understanding how they are embarking on these transformations, what worked, what didn't, so that other organizations can follow in their footsteps.
Definitely. So the takeaway, obviously, making horses into unicorns each and every day. Gene Kim, I appreciate you taking some time to talk to me and all of my viewers and listeners. And if you want more from IBM Innovate 2014 in Orlando, Florida, you can check out f5live.tv.